So, welcome to the first episode, everyone. This is Sifu Mark Phillips from London. Uh,
Well, hello guys. You're going to be hearing a lot from me speaking anyway. And one thing you'll find out is that I talk a lot and don't stop talking. So, hello from London.
awesome. And Sifu Bogdan Rosu from Romania, Bucharest. And this is interesting because it's the first episode that we're doing for Martial Mindset. And we were talking a bit earlier about, giving you guys a better idea of why we started this project in the first place, how it's going to serve you, and what we were planning to achieve, hopefully, with your support.
I mean, the most important thing really to get across really to you guys is that, martial arts is one thing, but it's more the mindset that we wanted to talk about. And the mindset is really what sort of motivates people to not only train, but just to sort of exist on a normal sort of day-to-day basis. It's what defines someone who's been successful. What do you think, Bogdan?
Yeah, definitely. And it's something that I'm super passionate about talking, and I think you get this a lot. Like as a martial arts instructor, people tend to see you as the martial arts guy. But when you start to talk about mindset and personal development and psychology, people don't really see these aspects all being connected between them, like how important your psychology and your mindset is just to train martial arts.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, predominantly the difference between winners and losers is their mindset, isn't it? I mean, you could have two people and they have exactly the same skills, exactly the same body type, all things being matched. If their mental aspects are very different, then I would always put my money on the person that's got their head in the game. And we see that even when you look at high-performing athletes. They can, every day they can run a certain speed, but if they're just slightly off on that day, then, and it's the same with anything, it's performance, but mental agility is key to performance. And that's really the point of this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And like guys, what we're trying to get across is how important it is to really understand your mind and the way that you function to get to a high level in your life. And that could be like having better relationships. That could be having a better performance in your career. That could be just having, a better relationship with yourself at the end of the day, looking in the mirror and saying, dude, you look awesome.
No, you should be doing that anyway. Thank yourself and be kind to yourself. That's always an important thing to do. Get rid of those negative thoughts. But look, we were just talking about this earlier. What really qualifies us to do this? I mean, at the end of the day, it is experience. And it's something that, the psychology, one of the things that I'm going to be bringing to the podcast is the psychology. Many of you know that my PhD is actually in criminal psychology, but actually at the heart of it, I'm a psychologist. And, I teach people how to defend themselves. I teach people how to think. I teach people how to deal with extreme circumstances. So, throughout the series, we're going to be talking about difficult scenarios, whether it be even life-dependent scenarios, but everything from dealing with extreme forms of violence to weapons to even interrogation. We'll be talking about that, waterboarding and so on. So there'll be a lot of things I'm talking about. So, I mean, one of the things that we're going to be doing, just to let people know, is we're going to interview as many different people, experts in their fields, with what we think are the sort of creative minds. We're not just going to look at martial artists or even specific martial arts styles. That's really important to sort of put that down.
And I think people that know us kind of, they're kind of asking themselves, guys, why aren't you talking strictly about martial arts, and why mindset, and why not, like we mentioned before we started recording, why not sushi, right?
Yeah. Sushi's great though.
Sushi's great. I'd love me some sushi right now, actually.
Well, I mean, the main thing is winners or losers. If you're into competition, it's a good thing to tune into this mindset. Even if you're not into competition, but you just want to try to improve on what you're doing, or maybe you're that guy that trains at home and wants some motivation to be able to train your martial art at home, then these are sort of topics we're going to be talking about. These are sort of things we're going to be engaging and trying to encourage you and spur you along.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. You know, like something that I started integrating ever since I started training martial arts was this idea of stepping into the right mindset. Because just like you mentioned, Mark, you see people with very, very similar aptitudes, yet one is a high performer, but the other person is not. What's the difference between the two? Well, the other one either has something to lose or has a very, very powerful why behind taking such massive action. Like, for example, the match between Mike Tyson and Buster Douglas. You know the story, right?
Yeah, I remember watching the fight. Yeah,
So
yeah.
his mother
My age.
died. What?
I'm showing my age now.
Did you watch the fight live?
I did watch the fight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that must have been exciting, right? I guess.
Oh yeah. I stayed up to the early hours of the morning like everybody did in those days and
Yeah.
watched it, but it was crazy. Yeah, it was like
Nobody
one of those.
I bet nobody expected Buster Douglas to do
Not
anything,
at all.
right?
Fell off the seat. That's how surprised.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those things. You watch the fight and you thought, yeah, it's going to be another Tyson walkover. He's going to walk over someone just like he usually does. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I remember that moment. It's one of those sort of pivotal sports moments. I think most people will never forget if they're old enough to be there.
Do you know why he performed that way?
No, actually, why? Tell us why.
His mother died before the match.
Oh, really?
His mother died, and he felt like he hadn't really proved himself as a human being, as okay, not necessarily as a human being, but as a fighter. Like he didn't have it all together. So that was his way of honoring his mother, just getting back up.
Profound, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is so profound.
Yeah.
But so he was driven basically by not internally. Well, it was internal, but I suppose by how would you describe that?
Something external. You change or you see drastic change either from something that comes from the outside, just like in this case, or from a massive shift in your from the inside out, right? When something snaps inside of you and you still like, okay, I cannot do this anymore. Just like smokers, like people who smoked for decades and then just all of a sudden stop.
Yeah, that's quite profound. It is profound. Talking about that, I mean, what do you think about, we were going to do a separate podcast on this anyway, but talking about people that enter, train martial arts and then they enter into competitions or challenge fights and, they obviously get beaten. We see this quite a lot on YouTube and various videos and so on. Do you think that's a mindset thing or do you think it's a training, problem in training?
Like people who get
so say for example, we've seen a lot of in our field because we do Wing Chun, we've seen a lot of Wing Chun instructors at challenges against MMA fighters, for example, and then they go into the ring or performance area or whatever and fight and they get beaten up. Do you think that's a difference in skill, martial art, training, preparation, or mental?
I think it has to do a lot with dogma. I think it has to do a lot with the programming that you get from your teacher. If your teacher says that your style is supreme and nobody can touch you, and you're like Wing Chun is the best in the world and it should handle anything and everything, and you believe that, you will tend to step into an environment where you're not familiar with just to get your
yeah.
what
and that is an issue of mindset again, isn't it?
Yes.
That's a psychological issue, especially when you train in an environment where there's this, I won't say cult-like attitude, but an attitude, like you said, where there's a dogma which is passed down in the sense that some people teach martial arts and they don't test the martial arts. So they say they'll teach something, and then if you challenge it in terms of, well, why do you do that? The answer will be is because you do that. Well, why do you do that? And if you keep pushing, they'll say because my teacher
said so. Yeah.
And then you'll push it again, and then they'll say, well, because my teacher's teacher told them to do that. And then at some point, if you'll go up the chain and you realize nobody's actually practiced this or really tested it.
You know what? I actually made a video today on Facebook kind of touching on this mentality because there's so many people, and I'm sure there's people listening right now who are in this situation who get into the same dogma regarding their careers, right? They know, like, nobody says when you're a kid, like, you ask a kid, what do you want to be? They're like, I'm going to be an astronaut. I'm going to be like, nobody says I'm going to be an accountant, right? Or I'm going to be a lawyer. There's nothing wrong with being an accountant or a lawyer, but if you didn't really follow your heart, if you didn't really follow that inner voice that says, look, this is what you should be doing with your life. Like, I'm sure that you had this challenge when you started teaching martial arts, right? People telling you, what are you doing? Are you crazy?
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
this is like,
why are you doing that? You should be doing something
you're
else.
throwing your life away, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
and people who listen to the dogma of, look, do something safe, okay? Take this job, you're gonna make money, and then start a family, right? But they feel so empty inside. It's like they're half dead most of the time, right? So I think it's very, very similar to people who take the same mentality of this is the way that it's always been done, and this is the way that you should do it. I love Bruce Lee's approach of test, see what's really yours. This belong to you, right?
Well, I mean, that's what essentially a science is. I mean,
Yeah.
you test and going back to, our martial art, the martial art that we're most interested in is Wing Chun. And one of the main things about Wing Chun is that it's supposed to be an art that's based on testing. It's supposed to be a scientific art. And if it's a scientific art, then you have to test. You have to come up with an idea, a hypothesis, and then you have to test that. And you can't hide behind someone saying, "Oh yes, this works on paper."
Yeah.
It's like the old argument of someone throws a haymaker, you can beat them with a straight punch because the haymaker has to go in a circle line. If you go in a straight line, it's the most direct route, and that's very true. But it's very true on paper. I mean, you could argue it really well on paper, but one of the things that is often missed is that reaction and emotions are at play, and you basically it's slower to react and quicker to throw a punch.
Yes.
I think the statistics are scary on that.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. And additionally, the person is moving their heads as well. So you think you're gonna catch their head, but you're not, right? You're not from long distance or mid range. This
exactly.
would work in short range, but yeah, it's.
But this, I mean, for you guys watching this, the reason why, I'm sort of pushing this line of conversation is because it's all the issues that I'm discussing or that I've sort of highlighted are issues of mindset and thinking. I mean, and it's dogma really, and dogma is dangerous in the martial art. And one of the things I've noticed a lot, especially in our community, our martial arts community, is there's a lot of dogma and a lot of lack, an inability to be open-minded and embrace other thoughts and feelings. And I think not feelings, that sounds too emotional, really, but thoughts, theories, and beliefs. I think is probably a better way. Worldviews.
What would you say? What would you say is like would be a better mindset to go at life, for example, and in martial arts? Like one mindset that you could use both in martial arts and in life.
Adaptability. You've got to be adaptable.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing, when you're training a martial art, there's a challenge. There's always going to be a challenge. And that challenge comes from two directions. It could be the person in front of you that's trying to hurt you. It could be you. Because, I don't know, you're tired, you don't want to train, or you're tired even. You're sparring. Let's give this a classic one.
Yeah.
You're sparring, you're tired, you're exhausted, but the guy's fitter than you and he's not giving up and he's still trying to hit you. What do? Do you give up, or do you try to push on and stay in the fight? And that's for some people, they may not understand that. But if you look at it from a perspective of everyday life, let me give you another example, which is a little bit more poignant. Training in itself. Training is a bit like a relationship. When you first start doing it, you have a honeymoon period. You love it. It's great. It's fantastic. Everything can't go wrong. You want to be there in the middle of it. And then as time goes on, you get to the day-to-day mundane aspects of it. And it's the same thing with life generally. And we're not talking about relationships. We're talking about life generally. You've got a job. You first start the job. It's a brilliant, fantastic, loving. Loving, that sounds a bit strange saying that, fantastic job. But after a while, it becomes a little bit tedious because you've got to get up at the same time. You've got to commute here in the rush hour. You've got to get to work, you've got to sit at your desk. You possibly
Definitely.
do. And then after a period of time, doesn't matter how much money you're being paid, you're going to get pretty fed up with the mundanity of it. It's the same with martial arts. You know, you're going to get fed up with turning up to the dojo, the boxing gym, wherever you're going to train. But something inside you has to either inspire you to continue that journey,
yes,
or to drive you to do that. And it's the same with life. And that's why I think the skills cross over. It's the same attitude, the same mindset developing in training martial art that you are essentially traveling and crossing over to other aspects of your life.
yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure you had this as well. Like when you were training, would you train with like people who are more on your level, or would you always go for the guys who are like the highest level and get as much as you could from those guys, even though if you got like beat up and you lost all the time, but you felt like so good because of the experience?
I've got two answers that spring to mind, because I do actually talk about this all the time when I'm talking about training. But the first thing is I just want to point out, and this is again a martial mindset, my belief excuse me, has always been to train my weaknesses, not my strengths. And one of the things I've always noticed when I watch people, and I've been teaching now for over 30 years, a very long time. One of the things I notice in teaching for all those decades is that when you watch guys, they always tend to default to what they're good at. So, for example, if they're training, I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well, as you know. So I was watching this. I have a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So, I've been doing it for quite a long time. I grapple as well. I've trained wrestling, judo, all sorts of martial arts, as well as Wing Chun as well. So, one of the things I will give you an example is that if a guy's really good at arm bars, then he's just going to always go for his armbar, and whenever he's training, because his ego has to be satisfied, he's always going to do what he's good at. And I noticed that a long time ago. I was lucky enough to be blessed with the insight that it's not really about strengthening my strengths, it's about strengthening my weaknesses. Because once I can have a tick list of what I'm not very good at, and then take away those weaknesses, then that naturally brings up my strength. So my training philosophy has always been to work on the things that I can't do, because my fear is that especially when it comes to self-defense and it comes to fighting, I'm always going to have to fight on the back foot. I'm always going to fight from a weak position. And what I mean is if, for example, I can't fight on the ground but I'm really good stand-up, then it's a good chance that if it was a real life confrontation, I might end up on the ground. And there's far too many people I've met in the martial arts community in my travels over many years that will say, yes, well, I'm so good at my feet, it'll never go to the ground. Well, you don't know that. You don't know that. And if it does go to the ground, what are you going to do? Often the answer is, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. But if you've never trained it or experienced it, you can't make that assumption. So what I did was, and I was fairly successful in the Wing Chun community. I mean, I don't really need to sort of go on about that. A lot of people know who I am. I've established a very reputable, successful school in London. We're quite well known internationally. There's no reason for me to train another martial art. There was no reason for me to do that. But I saw it as a weakness. I thought, well, okay, this is something that I need to do, because ultimately, and I've done that with everything I've done in terms of not just in martial arts, but in life. I try to look at, well, what are my weaknesses? What are the things I need to improve on? Then I try to address that. I don't bias towards my strength. So I know it's a long answer for your question, but the question is, I would look for the best guys to train with, absolutely, because I'd want to work on what I was not very good at. But also, I think it's important to identify specifically the missing skills that you have and work on that. And that is a mindset. It's not a physicality.
I think it's the right attitude, like to keep relationships alive and to keep your your performance at your job, because you probably think that you're doing the same thing over and over, but you're not. Right? If you're looking like, what can I improve today? Like, what's my weakness really? Right? And then you start to work on that, or just have this mindset of growth. Right?
Definitely.
And something that I learned from I don't remember exactly the author, but they said something along the lines of every week, ask your spouse how would they rate the relationship, like from 1 to 10. Right?
Yeah.
So what he would do with his wife, like he would do this exercise every week, right? And he's like, there were times when I got a 3 or a 4, right?
Wow. Wow.
But like every answer that is below 10, right, gets the following question: what could I do to make the relationship a 10? Right? You're not gonna get 7, 8s, or 3 or 4s every week, right? You're gonna get 10s as well. But just by asking your spouse, what can I do to make the relationship a 10? Right? You are suddenly focusing on, oh my God, there's so much more to be experienced in this relationship. Because like if your spouse is cool, they're not going to be like, oh, you know what, wash the dishes, or you forgot to do this. They're going to be like, it's also going to be more meaningful things. Like, you know what, I would have loved to spend a bit more time with you. I would have loved for you to ask me this, or do like important stuff, right? And it's the same with your job. If you sit down with your manager and you ask your manager, like, what can I do to improve, right? You're suddenly going to be not in what's the word, like, not in a sucking up kind of way, but be honest and genuine of, you know what, I really want to be the best that I can be. Your manager's going to love you. They're going to be like, oh my God, this guy or gal, they're going to be superstars, right? So
yeah, I mean, without a doubt, you have to show your willingness. But one of the things when I was listening to you, I was thinking about, it's not just a job. What happens if you want to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, same. You need metrics. Metrics. And this is something that I struggled with hugely. I refuse to look at my metrics. Like, what am I spending? What's the number of people coming to the school? What's the retention rate? And that's ridiculous. That's silly, and it took me like 3 years to get out of that mindset.
Yeah. And it's a perseverance as well. I remember listening to someone talking about martial motto. In fact, I mean, the general idea of starting a business is exactly the same process in terms of starting a martial art, right? When you say that, it's the same process. You start it, you got full of enthusiasm, but you're going to hit a lot of challenges and hurdles, especially in business. And you need that staying power. Really, you need I suppose systems. I think those are probably the best way of describing it. Psychological systems or ways of thought to help you over those hurdles. I mean, that's really what we're going to be doing in this podcast, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like sharing systems of thought, systems of meditating, systems of just improving your overall performance. No, I actually learned yesterday that meditation or that it's super useful to have a system for meditation. Like when I wake up, or like at this time, I'm going to meditate. I'm going to prepare my mind for the day, because I feel like, did you notice like when you do something in the morning or maybe you decide that today's going to be a great day, like things just go smoother in your day compared to just reacting to everything that's happening. And you're like, by the end of the day, you're like, oh my God, I think I want to die.
I want to go to bed. Yeah. I actually, that comes down to that positivity again, though. If you actually say this is going to be a good day, then you're setting. And to be honest, people say it all the time, but how many people actually do it? And how many people actually believe it? Because a lot of people, it is quite a common mantra. People say, look, start with the positive, think positive, and you'll attract positivity. But if you don't really truly believe it, it's not going to happen.
Did you watch like Dexters Laboratory?
No, actually, I didn't. I know, I sort of know roughly about it. Is that the sort of thing they were doing?
Yeah, that's like that's more of a my generation type of cartoon, right? Like when I think about it, like when I was watching Dexter's Laboratory, you were already building like this huge school, right, in London. It's crazy, right?
Absolutely. Well, I started professionally teaching because we had this conversation, but I started teaching when I was 18. I was an apprentice instructor.
Yeah.
So by the time I was 20, I was a professional instructor. So professionals
Lots
defined
of,
by making a living out of it. So for those of you watching this, it's very different to people that have got a day job, and
yeah.
it's not disparaging them or saying that they're not very good at what they're doing. It's just completely different because you're immersed in anyone that teaches professionally. They're immersed into what they do. They have to be. So
Yeah, you have to be 100% either, or it's not going to work.
exactly.
It's not going to be a career. So what Dexter would do, and people watching the show, they know, like he would start every day with this phrase: today is a fine day for science. But like in his case, everything would go to everything would get destroyed because of his sister. But just like starting your day with, oh my God, today's going to be a great day for Wing Chun, you're not going to have the same disastrous effects as actually, like, I think the opposite is going to happen. You're going to have a really, really good day.
Yeah, I mean, generally getting back onto sort of the track of this. We're going to interview quite a range of guests, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
So you had some ideas of bringing in some entrepreneurs as well, and talking about.
Actually, guys, if you're listening right now, give us some suggestions, right? Get in touch with us. Post like in the comments or send us an email. You'll find it in the description. Let us know who are some people that you look up to, that you really, really appreciate online or offline, and you think would be a great, great fit for us to get in touch with and have on the show. Like people to interview in terms of like psychologists, entrepreneurs, or, any type of person that would add value in terms of mindset and high level performance.
Because it is about high level performance that we're looking at. I mean, if you're just an ordinary martial artist and you're watching this just to get some tips and training, that's great. But what we hope to do is sort of to extend beyond that, so you get some extra benefits.
Yeah, it's just like that attitude of, instead of teaching you how to fish, instead of giving you fish, we're teaching you how to fish. We're teaching you how to learn martial arts, but not just learn to be high level at what you're doing, be it martial arts, be it your job, be it like your amazing relationships and so on and so forth. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things, just to add to that, I mean, I've trained a lot of people over the many years, and I've trained a lot of instructors. And one of the things I've noticed is with a lot of those guys that I've worked with, they've gone on to be quite successful, not just in the martial arts community, but in their personal lives as well. They've gone on to actually have some very good jobs. I mean, some of the younger guys that I've had, in terms of they've started with me as teenagers and become young men, have gone on to get into aspiring university courses and have been able to communicate very well and eloquently with people in a high level business environment, purely because they've learned how to communicate, how to engage with other people, how to think, and how to be productive. So there's a lot of benefits that we really, through this podcast, really want to sort of emphasize and get out on the martial mindset. Really.
Yeah, definitely. Like, did you notice there, like in the first 3 months, there, your students are already making like more money. They are having more higher levels of satisfaction from what they're doing, right?
Yeah, but it's also their engagement as well with each other and me. You really do notice, but it's quite remarkable. A lot of, especially some of the youngsters, it's nice to see that they go on. And they go on and they do really well. They perform really well. I've had a couple of students go on to be doctors and surgeons and so on. And it's quite impressive. We don't define success by obviously occupation, but I define it as their ability and their ability to interact and also to be persistent. So, if you're persistent even at starting your own business, and it could be selling, I don't know, anything, paper cards even. It takes a certain mindset to probably do that.
Definitely. What I noticed in my students is that they don't necessarily can't come for, yes, they do come for martial arts and to learn how to defend themselves and become more confident. But most of them, and you guys listening might be in this situation as well, you already have everything you need, right? You have the tools, you have the skills to learn what you need to learn. You have everything. It's already inside of you. But when most people come to my class is to somehow get this kind of permission. Look, it's all right to show up as your best self. It's all right to use all of your tools. It's all right to be brave and step into this world with your chest out, right? And your back straight. It's cool. It's going to be great, right? You do that because you're going to get better results. And once they feel like they have this kind of quote unquote permission, they just allow themselves to be that person.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I can't really add on that. I think you hit the nail straight on the head with that. I mean, we really, at the end of the day, have to look at how we influence people and the positivity. As a teacher, I'm talking about, really, and that's one of the benefits of doing that. So in the meantime.
So this is probably what we're trying to do with the show, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I mean, the purpose of the show is twofold. It is to obviously engage people in how they think, to encourage those strengths and weaknesses that we were talking about earlier, or addressing both strengths and weaknesses, but also start to develop a mindset that with transferable skills. I mean, transferable skills such as leadership is something that's really important, and I think you get leadership through good martial art instruction anyway. Perseverance, all of the good qualities that we have, because martial arts isn't just about kicking and punching. It's really a mental aspect, which has been lost, I think, really. It really has been lost. So the purpose really is just to try to get that across.
To me, it's mind-boggling to try to learn like leadership just from a book, right? You can, or just like some kind of course, because you can get the right strategies and techniques. You definitely need those to better understand people. But as a leader, if you step into a room and if you don't have the ability to fill the room with your energy, right? If you need to show up for your team and you're not filling up the room with your personality, with your energy, it's very difficult for people to justify following you.
Yes, yeah. But leadership's also about immersion. You have to, because leadership is about serving people. It's not about managing people. I think that's a major problem in most business communities, is that they mistake leadership for management. And actually there's a shifting theories and thoughts in the difference between leadership and management. But it is about immersion. You have to immerse. I mean, my style of leadership is to model, basically, to immerse people and to model behavior, rather than being bureaucratic and also telling people what they have to do, which is more management style. So I think it's really important. Leadership is something it is important, because in a martial arts environment, you are developing a mindset that, as we keep hinting at so far that we've been discussing this, is transferable skills externally, but leadership is one of those. So, and some of these young people that we're developing are going to be future leaders within their own fields and captains of industry in their own areas.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm excited.
Definitely. Well, we've got some great guests coming up, so I hope many of you will be with us in the long term watching them. We are definitely looking for people to be giving us an insight into their own personal experiences that we think we can all benefit from. And that's quite important, because we want to be as open to exploring what really makes a great mindset, what really makes a martial mind, and how those skills are transferable. So stick with us.
Yeah, definitely. What we're going to be doing, guys, for you is like this is going to be for you if you feel that you're somehow meant for more, right? If you feel that you can achieve more in your life, and all you need is just like a bit of a push, a bit of encouragement, and some systems and tools to get you there and keep you consistently getting results, it's going to be the right thing for you. So if you're excited to join us on this journey, definitely give us a shout out, like type a comment, or share this episode with some friends. We would really appreciate it. And definitely give us a rating on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. That would really help us out. Yeah.
Excellent.
Okay. We'll see you guys next time with our first guest.
Yeah, have a good day. Keep smiling. Keep your thumbs up.